Dear learners, welcome back to SOIM program on information technology applications in libraries. In this week 8, today we are going to learn about managing access and authentication of e-resources. This is today's agenda. We will be discussing on various methods for managing authentication and access control, issues in e-resource authentication and authorization, and the conclusion part. The effective management of e-resource access and authentication is a critical component of contemporary library operations. Ensuring authorized users can smoothly utilize digital content while uploading security measures and adhering to licensing agreements. With the growing prominence of digital resources in libraries and other institutions, the effective management of this system is very crucial for improving user experience and safeguarding the integrity of electronic resources. The effective access control ensures that both on-site and remote users can conveniently access the materials what they need, while strong authentication measures protect against unauthorized use and ensure adherence to copyright and licensing regulations. Now let us discuss what are different methods for managing authentication and access control. This process involves implementing various technologies, including IP-based authentication, username and password authentication, federated authentication, two-factor authentication, proxy server authentication, and role-based access control. If you think of while you accessing your e-resources from your library or university libraries, you might have experienced any one of these authentication and the access control. If you are not experienced, you can inquire about the librarian. What methods are they using to manage in this authentication and access control? Now let us discuss one by one. The IP-based authentication is one of the most common and straightforward method for granting access to electronic resources, that is IP-based authentication. This approach utilizes the user's IP address to confirm their location within an authorized network such as campus or organization network. When user try to access the e-resources, the system verifies if the connecting IP address is included in a pre-established list of approved IT addresses, typically associated with the library or institution's network. And the access will be granted if the IP address matches with the pre-established approved list of IP address. For example, numerous academic institutions employ IP-based authentication for electronic journals, databases, or other licensed resources. If you consider as a university library, that might allow its students and faculty members and other staff members, those who are eligible to access electronic resources, they will allow to access the platforms like JEST or or Springer or Elsevier, etc., using this method, ensuring that only users within the institution's IP range can authenticate and use the resources. Ensuring that only users within the institution's IP range can authenticate and use the resources. The persons, those who are accessing the e-resources outside the campus, are not able to access it because the system will not authenticate that person is a original user or the authorized user of the library. So now let us discuss what are the various advantages of IP-based authentication. It is a easy step and it is very. Now let us discuss what are the various advantages of IP-based authentication. Include easy step and management, and it is having the seamless access for on-campus users, effective for bulk licensing agreement with the publishers. These are the advantages, but the disadvantages include limited support for remote access unless combined with a proxy server or VPN, ineffective for dynamic IP addresses such as those used in mobile network. Maybe the people are within the campus, if they are able to search with other network or other systems, they will not be able to access it. Dear learners, this is another method of authentication, that is username and password authentication. Username and password authentication is another widely adopted method for controlling access to e-resources. This approach requires users to establish an account with a unique username and secure password for login purpose. When attempting to access an e-resource, users are prompted to enter this credential, that means the username and password. The system then authenticates the provided information by comparing it with the data stored in a centralized user database, such as the library's user management system or institutional directory. An example of this authentication method can be found in library systems like Koha, which use it for assessing library management features. Users may need to log into a reserve books, access digital content, or manage their library accounts. The advantages of user ID and password method are relatively simple implementation and management. It can be combined with other methods for enhanced security, that is two-factor authentication, and it is suitable for both on-campus and remote users. Disadvantages include vulnerability to hacking if passwords are weak or infrequently updated. It is potential burden on users who must remember multiple login credentials. It will be difficult to remember the username and the passwords. Another method is federated authentication. In the federated authentication enables users to access multiple systems or resources using a single set of credentials across different domains. This is typically achieved through protocols like SAML, Security Assertion Markup Language, or OpenID Connect, which facilitate authentication across various organizations without requiring separate login for each. When a user attempts to access an e-resource, their institution identity provider, IDP, authenticates them and send an authentication token to the service provider, SP. This service provider then grants access based on the identity confirmation from the IDP. This is a process. For instance, many universities utilize shibboleth a popular federated identity management system to allow students and faculty to access various academic databases such as IEEE Explorer, Elsevier Science Direct, or Springer Link. By logging it once through their institutional identity provider, users can access numerous subscribed resources without needing separate credential for each use. The advantages include simplified authentication process for users requiring only one login, improved security through centralized user administration, decreased management burden for multiple credential sets, and the disadvantages includes it necessitates technical setup and integration with identity service providers. And it is possible, there is a possible accessibility issues if the identity provider experiences downtime. The next one is two-factor authentication. The two-factor authentication 2FA incorporates an additional security measures by demanding two types of identification from users. One is a non-element such as password and the possessed item that like a mobile device or hardware token. Following password entry, user must input a time-sensitive code delivered via text message, email, or generated by applications such as Google Authenticator. This supplementary verification step this supplementary verification step safeguards against unauthorized access even if a password is compromised. Numerous online platforms, including academic databases and services, implement 2FA to bolster security. For example, an educational institution offering remote access to digital resources might require faculty and students to authenticate using their university credentials, followed by entering one-time code sent it to their mobile device. The advantages of this federated method of authentication include substantially enhanced security as compared to traditional username password authentication. It also minimizes the risk of unauthorized entry due to compromised login information. And the disadvantages include demands additional configuration and user engagement because they have to give permission from phone or different application setup. And it may cause inconvenience if users cannot immediately access the second authentication factor. For example, if they are not carrying their telephone or their mobile or they are not able to access email at that time. Another method is proxy server authentication. Proxy server authentication is a widely adopted method by libraries to facilitate remote access to electronic resources. The proxy server functions as a mediator between users and e-resources, verifying user credentials before relaying request of publisher's website. When off-campus users attempt to access an e-resource, their request is directed through the library's proxy server. This server validates the user's credentials and if it is authentic, forwards the request to the resource provider on the user's behalf. The resource provider detects the proxy server's IP address instead of users, ensuring that only authorized individual can gain the access to the electronic resources. A university might employ a proxy server to enable off-campus access to electronic resources like a Busco host or a Procost. Students and faculty can utilize the library's website or a proxy URL to access these resources from any locations while the system verifies their authentication before granting access. During this corona pandemic, when the libraries are not able to access physically, then the users of the library, most of the users of the library in the world, they use this proxy server method to access the e-resources that are available in the libraries remotely. The advantages of this method are this proxy server allows remote access to e-resources typically restricted to on-campus users, and it operates seamlessly for users once configured, providing smooth access. And the disadvantages include it requires ongoing maintenance and potential troubleshooting for access issues. It is susceptible to misuse if not correctly configured. The disadvantages of this method include it requires ongoing maintenance and potential troubleshooting for access issues, and it is susceptible to misuse if not correctly configured. And another method of authentication access is role based access control, RBAC. The role based access control is an approach to managing resource access based on individuals' position within an organization. In this system, access privileges for specific resources are linked to roles, and users are assigned these roles according to their job responsibilities or status. Access to electronic resources is granted to users based on predetermined roles such as student, faculty, or administrator. Each role comes with specific permissions, ensuring that individuals can only access the resources essential for their work. For instance, in a university library setting, students might be limited to accessing certain journals or databases, while faculty members could have more extensive access to specialized resources. Additionally, administrators might have the capability to modify system settings or permissions, whereas general users are limited to viewing the content. The advantages of RBS include streamlining access management by categorizing users into roles, improving security by restricting access to sensitive information based on role assignments, and the disadvantages of RBSC includes potential inflexibility if roles do not accurately reflect individual user requirements. This another disadvantage is that there is a need for meticulous planning and continuous adjustments to roles and permissions. Dear learners, now let us discuss what are different issues in e-resource authentication and authorization. There are issues like privacy and security, need to adapt to evolving technologies and user expectations, challenge for providing access outside of the library's physical walls, copyright and intellectual property right issues, user experience, machine users, and artificial intelligence and machine learning. These are various issues for e-resource authentications. Let us see what is privacy and security. As digital resources are accessed remotely, ensuring that sensitive user data such as personal details and usage patterns are protected from unauthorized access becomes critical. Authentication methods like single sign on SSO or federated access may help, but they also present potential vulnerabilities if not implemented securely, making privacy a key challenge. And we need to adapt to evolving technologies and user expectations. With the rapid pace of technological advancements, libraries must keep pace with new authentication methods that align with current trends, such as multiple factor authentication MFA or biometric authentication, while also meeting user demands for more streamlined, user friendly access. The shift towards mobile devices, cloud platforms, and integration with third party services has heightened the need for libraries to continuously evolve their authentication and authorization methods. And challenges of providing access outside of the library's physical walls. Libraries need to ensure that users can access e-resources from anywhere, which often means utilizing proxy servers or VPNs to extend access. However, this is also creates complexities in maintaining secure authentication and authorization mechanisms that prevent unauthorized access while allowing legitimate off-campus users to benefit from e-resources. And the issues like copyright and intellectual property right issues also be there for unauthorized access or misuse of e-resources can lead to violations of IPR, potentially resulting in legal repercussions or loss of access to digital content. And the user experience is also affected by authentication and authorization methods. While security is a priority overall, complicated or lengthy authentication processes can deter users from accessing resources or create frictions in their experience. So libraries must find all ways to simplify these processes while maintaining security to ensure that users can easily find and access the materials they need without unnecessary obstacles. And the machine users such as boards and automated systems that access e-resources that pose a unique challenges in authentication and authorization. These machine users can exploit security weakness and bypass traditional authentication methods. So libraries need to develop systems that distinguish between human and machine access to prevent abuse and protect the integrity of electronic resources available in our libraries. Artificial intelligence and machine learning introduces a new layer of complexity. AI tools such as intelligent chatbots or automated data scraping tools can potentially bypass traditional security measures, posing new threats to the security and integrity of e-resource access. At the same time, AI can be used to enhance security systems, for instance, by detecting unusual access patterns that may signal a breach. However, it is crucial to remain vigilant about the potential for artificial intelligence systems to be misused or manipulated to undermine access controls. Learners, let us conclude that authentication and access control methods play a critical role in ensuring that e-resources are securely and appropriately accessed by authorized users. By choosing the right combination of methods, such as IP based authentication, federated identity, two factor authentication, role based access, libraries and institutions can ensure the seamless delivery of resources while protecting both users and intellectual property. As technologies evolved, so too must the system for managing access, always balancing security, user convenience, and compliance with the legal requirements. These are the references that has been consulted, and I thank all the learners for your patience listening of this topic. And we will be meeting with another topic. Till then, goodbye. Thank you so much.